ESBR Boxing, we are back, myself and Danny, and we are here in final predictions mode. We're featuring on the supercard that's taking place at Wembley Stadium, headlined by Joshua and Dubois. But we are here previewing the fight that's actually taking place between Ismael Davis and Josh Kelly. But before we get into that, Danny, you can just do on your prediction for a second there. I'd like to address everyone who's watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Also, feel free to pop some engagement, some comments under the videos, and we will use those to refine our future content. But Danny, coming into this fight, obviously Josh Kelly, a guy who's obviously been around, well known by British fans now, 15-1-1 record. Due obviously to fight Liam Smith. Liam Smith's obviously pulled out of this one, so up steps Ismael Davis, 13-0 record, 6 KOs with and so really we're going to get into this. We're going to talk about when it comes to predictions, but let's go straight in with it, Danny. We don't want to sort of sugarcoat it too much. Josh Kelly, Ismael Davis, who wins, Danny, and why?
Josh Kelly, I think, should beat him. That not being said, Ismael Davis is live in the fight, I think, despite you getting, a week's notice, not even that 6 days' notice. He's been this sort of like hidden gem being billed as like a potential world level contender at 154. He's got a great story. He was in prison. He's came out. He fought Troy Williamson on the undercard of Jose Zepeda, Dalton Smith, I think it was, and I was at that. And he beat Troy Williamson in pretty good fashion. Maybe not as convincing as Josh Kelly did, but probably I think the judges had it 7 rounds to 4. Maybe it was a 10-rounder. But anyway, I just think the way to beat Kelly is slow the legs down, put the pressure on, and try and break him down later in the fight. And it's not really, from what I've seen of Ismael Davis, his approach. Don't get me wrong, he's not someone who gets in the back foot, but he doesn't, fight for 3 minutes of every round. He slows the pace down to the fight he wants to fight, box a bit, which against Josh Kelly, I mean, people still have mixed opinions on Josh Kelly, but I don't think there's anyone who would deny he's an exceptionally talented boxer on the back foot. He's extremely hard to hit clean, and if you get into a pure boxing match with him, unless you're one of the best in the world, you're going to lose. So that, stylistically, I don't think it's necessarily the best fight for Ismael Davis, but factoring in the 6 days' notice, by all accounts, Ismael was due to fight in 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So he was in the gym. He must be in decent nick if he's confident to making 160 pounds on under a week's notice. He's obviously not ballooned up something stupid. But I just think you've got to favour Josh Kelly to win on points, I would say.
Yeah. I think I've been quite a critical voice, I suppose, of Josh Kelly over the time on this channel. But I think you say you have to look at that victory against Troy Williamson and the way he handled that, for me, was actually quite telling in this version of Josh Kelly. And I think I actually am not going to disagree with you. Take a bit of stick possibly for agreeing with you too often, but I'm not going to disagree with you. I think Josh Kelly points as well is the way forward. When you look at the records there, though, and you see obviously Josh Kelly, 15 with 8 KOs on that record, and Ismael 6 KOs on his. Do you really see this as being essentially kind of nailed on points? It's over 12 rounds. Or do you think there's any chance that Kelly might actually stop him if he were to win, or is it literally nailed on for the judges?
Nah, I think the way Josh Kelly fights now, since moving up to 154, he's a lot more cautious of that gas tank emptying the way it did against Avanesian. And I think the weight cut to 147 pounds probably played a factor in that as well. But in these fights he's had since signing with Wasserman, even the Troy Williamson fight, the fight against some Argentinian fella, I can't remember his name, like he would fight for a minute, then he'd take a bit off, and then he would go again. And he's never been a massive puncher to get someone out of there with one punch. And I just think the majority of Josh Kelly fights now that he's fighting that are competitive, if he wins, will go to decision. I think he's very cautious of his gas tank emptying, so he doesn't really go through the gears. He wants to force a stoppage, which is fine. That's there's nothing he can do about that. The way he fights, he's fast twitch. But I would be surprised if Kelly stops him, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think be nice to get. We've both obviously gone with Josh Kelly here, and Josh Kelly, surprisingly, I suppose, considering how sort of pressing he sort of tend to dominate different stages of his career. He's still only 30 years old, so like you say, fighting up a middleweight now. I suppose coming through this as we expect him to do, coming through this fight here. Do you? I was interested to get your view actually of where you kind of see Kelly going, like what the sort of ceiling for Josh Kelly up at middleweight. Obviously, it's a division which It's not. We've talked obviously about Shiraz as well being in there as well, and other names. And you're saying Janabek, you know, struggling to make the weight and potentially moving on. Do you see Josh Kelly as being possible world title contender up at middleweight? I mean, how do you sort of match him after this and then over the next sort of 12 to 18 months? How far do you think he can go in the division?
I don't know if he will stick at middleweight, to be honest. I still see his future at 154. I mean, he's not a big fella to be fighting at middleweight. And you factor in, like, Shiraz is there, even Lara, Carlos Adames, these people are so much bigger than Josh Kelly. I think the reason the fight's at 160 is because obviously the Liam Smith fight was supposed to be there, and it was a massive fight, and Liam Smith essentially said, look, I can't make 154. Doesn't look like he was able to make 160. You believe some of the rumblings that are going around. So I don't actually see this as a move for a long-term plan for Josh Kelly. I think he'll probably return to 154. If I recall correctly, he's ranked number 2 or was ranked number 2 with the WBO belt, which who's that held by? Was Tim Tszyu Fundora, maybe? Not sure off the top of my head. So it's probably a better division to place yourself in financially now. The middleweight division is one of the worst in boxing at the minute. Whereas at 154, you've got Crawford, you've got Virgil Ortiz, you've got Fundora, you've got Tim Tszyu. These are all much bigger fights, particularly if they end up on a Saudi show. So I think he'll have grown his profile enough to that if he does get called as a mandatory, it's probably a fight that one, a champion would be willing to take, and two, a Turkey Al Sheikh would be willing to stick on. So yeah.
Yeah, no, let's talk a little bit about that. I suppose, like you mentioned, obviously, Fundora. You mentioned obviously Crawford. There's obviously Madrimov down there. You know, Tim Tszyu was kicking around those sort of divisions. Do you think? Do you sort of reckon? So just saying, do you reckon we'll see Josh Kelly maybe in those fights? I mean, do you give him any chance of prevailing in those fights, or do you essentially see this as kind of one of those careers which is sort of stop-started in a way and started to pick up momentum, but when it hits a certain level, will unfortunately come unstuck? I mean, is that what you think for Josh Kelly, or do you see a chance in this version of him where he could prevail in a world title?
I'd make him a big underdog, obviously against Terence Crawford, against Madrimov, against Tim Tszyu. Virgil Ortiz would be an interesting one. I mean, we've really not seen anything from Virgil Ortiz since moving up to 154. Stopped a couple of faded fighters who weren't that much to begin with in a couple of rounds. Like, it wasn't just a bad weight cut he was making to 147. Like, he was hospitalized like twice, I think. So there's big question marks over how well he can go the rounds. I don't think he'd ever been beyond 7 rounds prior to that anyway. So that's a winnable fight. I mean, he's a massive puncher, still looks a big puncher at 154. That's a massive fight. A winnable fight, I think. Fundora would be difficult. The size of him, he'd be able to hit Kelly for an hour and punch a bit, but Kelly's got the ability to give any of them problems. It's just sustaining it is the question mark. And yeah, there's some killers in that division.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Danny, thank you. That's all we've got time for today. But obviously, we were focusing on Kelly fight this upcoming at Wembley Stadium, obviously on the Joshua and Dubois undercard. So let us know really whether you agree with this there. Obviously, we've gone with Josh Kelly both on points with an unlikelihood, as Danny eloquently described, of maybe being a stoppage, but not on the realms possibility, but unlikely. Let us know whether you agree or disagree with that. Also, check out the channel, like and subscribe. As we said at the top end of this interview, we've got other sort of, final predictions, interviews with fighters, big fight breakdowns, all the good stuff of that nature. And let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with Danny. Thank you very much for your time. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching.